Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the rounds I played at a recent tournament out in Biloxi, Mississippi at the Hiller Park Disc Golf Course. It was called the Back Bay Battle, and I have featured this course on this channel once before when I played with young up-and-comer Silas Williams, who is a 14-year-old that's already almost 1,000 rated and is crushing everyone that he plays when he plays at the MA1 advanced tournaments, and is also even podiumed and I think even won an MPO tournament. Anyway, point is I had only played this course for that video. So I was coming into this tournament with really not that much course knowledge, just because the course is a little over an hour away, so I wasn't really able to get out to it, but did still want to play this tournament, and I did get the one practice round in with Silas, and so I had a general idea of kind of how some of the holes played, but it was also extremely windy the day that we played that practice round, and so it was hard to learn a lot about how my discs were going to fly and what landing zones to shoot for and things of that nature. And so I was coming in at a bit of a disadvantage, but still wanting to compete in the tournament anyway. And so we're going to get into it. First, want to point out the new drip here. Got some new jerseys made this year for disc golf by a friend of mine named Zach Benson, who owns a company called Prismatic Gear. I'll actually put their links down below. And I went with like this circuit board kind of theme, just to kind of celebrate my PC gaming and esports background. And then of course I just have the logo I've been sporting on the channel from day one on the back and on the front on a chest crest, and you'll see that later on. So just kind of wanted to point that out as well. But without further ado, because I've been talking quite a lot, let's get into it. This is the first hole. I believe this is hole 14. Very elevated basket and kind of a technical shot. There's definitely a gap you have to hit. So this is my first tee shot of the tournament. Very windy this first round, I want to add. And it was also very cold. And that one I just didn't commit to the shot, so wound up releasing early, and so I drifted way left than where I wanted to be. So it left me rather long putt at the elevated basket. Kind of gave it like a slight floaty bid, but wanted to make sure I just got my par and got out of there, which you'll be able to see me just kind of tap in here. It was also quite cold this first round. I think it was like 45, 48 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'm layered up. So this is hole 15, a very long par 3 and a lot of danger with the water left and some OB to the right as well. So just wanted to throw something safe to get me in the center of the fairway. But it was hard to get much distance as there was quite a big headwind going on. And because of that big headwind, my forehand got completely smashed and flipped over. So I didn't really get any distance on that approach shot. So I was left with a rather long backhand approach. But I was able to get it up there and put myself in putting distance. So it's like kind of my first real putt of the tournament, since the last one was kind of just a tap in. I was able to stick it. So that was a bogey, though, because this is a par 3. But that is one of those really hard par 3s that a 3 feels like a birdie on. So a 4 didn't feel too bad on that hole to me. Then here's a rather long uphill par 3. And I'll just say, on a lot of these holes that were the longer par 3s, I was really just trying to play for par. Get the distance I could to set up an easier approach shot, but not doing anything too crazy to try to force something and, grab like a rare birdie. I was just trying to play smart golf for the most part. So I think I'm at +1 at this point because I parred the first hole, bogeyed the second, and I just parred the third hole there. So here's another one of those holes that's just a really long par 3, not much chance to get the birdie, so just trying to get up there, but I flared way left. And it was because there was a headwind, so I was throwing an overstable disc, but just didn't calculate correctly, skipped way left, and then I really just messed up that upshot. And so I leave myself a very long par putt. And I wound up just coming up a few inches short, hitting the bottom of the bucket. So now we're getting to one of the more reasonable length par 3s, but a very tight one. But I threw an absolutely perfect shot and was able to drop that in for a birdie. So that got me to, I think, even par at this point in the round. Or no. I'm still +1 because I bogeyed the hole right before that one. This one I'm able to hit the gap and put myself in a good position to grab myself another birdie. And I get it. So that gets me to even. Because I've had 2 bogeys and 2 birdies and then a couple of pars. At the very next hole here. Yikes. And so this was a Mando. For those of you who don't know much about disc golf, you know, when you see these arrows, there's like mandatories where you have to play to the left side of this tree. That's what a Mando left is. And I actually hit the tree and kicked forward and right. So that put me past the Mando, and therefore I missed the Mando. And so now I'm throwing 3 from the drop zone. Kind of pulled that forehand a little too far to the left. Left myself a very lengthy putt to try to save bogey. And once again, I missed low, which has been my constant miss with putting. And so now I'm back to 2 over par. Kind of erasing those 2 birdies, unfortunately. But the very next hole, I kept my composure. Didn't let it get to me. Throw a really good forehand here. Setting me up for another birdie. And I'm able to sink it. And so that kind of, you know, gets me a little bit back into it. Now I got an island hole here. And all I'm thinking about is just trying to make sure I make the island. Which I do get across the water just fine. But this was a weird one because I was throwing kind of an overstable putter, an Envy. And I was thinking it would fade left for me because it was even kind of a tailwind. But it just kept flying straight. So I don't know if the wind changed or something and it was more of a headwind and it kind of kept it straight. Either way, it winds up putting me in this bush where I have to like straddle out and didn't really have a good look at it. So why not just taking a par on that hole? So now I'm still at 1 over par, I think, at this point in the round. After par on that one. No. That one I just let get too high. Gets dropped. We didn't catch the first approach shot, but it didn't go well. So now I'm left with this crazy roller shot to try to get around the corner. Didn't make it through. So now I'm left with like a 40-foot bogey putt. And I was able to cash it. So I wound up limiting the damage there, but I still took a bogey. So now I'm at like +3, I think, on the round. Very next hole. Kind of a similar situation to hole 1, the island hole, where I thought I was going to get some fade out of the disc, and it wound up just flying dead straight. So was not able to push across this ditch and give myself a chance at birdie. Tried to give it a crazy chance anyway. And get a tap-in par. So now we're on the very next hole. Hole 4. Just a beautiful drive. It did exactly what I wanted. Just slightly turned, got through the gap on the right-hand side, and it sets me up for this birdie putt on this hole. It's a little over 300 feet, so, I mean, I did really well here. No, Dustin. And that one hurt because I had missed low, you'll remember, a couple of putts in a row, and so I was thinking, you know, make sure you give it the height you need. And I wound up giving it too much hits to top band. And that was only like a 10 or 15-foot putt, so that really hurt. That was a birdie that could have got me back a stroke, but now I'm still at 3 over par. Now we're on this ridiculous par 3. I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is not a good par 3. It says par 4 on the sign, but it was in the short pin position playing as a par 3. But this hole pretty much feels impossible to get a 2 on. Getting a 3 feels like a birdie. Getting a 4 feels like a par. But it still is a bogey on your scorecard. And I did want to take in the bogey here, so now I think I'm at +4 at this point in the round. This is another one of those longer par 3s where I wasn't really going to be able to reach the basket for birdie. But I was just trying to get a good shot out there, and I threw a pretty good shot. Got across the ditch and everything. Leaves me a very, you know, small approach shot to get to the basket. Tried to give it a bit of a jump putt bid. Gave it a good chance. But went up par on that hole, so still staying at +4. Couldn't really see this one because my body's kind of blocking the shot, but you can kind of see the disc that kind of skipped over there to the right. So kind of didn't get it where I wanted to be. Wound up skipping off to the right a little too much. Again, kind of gave it a little bit of a jump putt bid, hit the basket, but that wasn't really a reasonable putt to expect to make. So it's another par. just looking to play a safe spike hyzer over the water and near this basket. Now, here's a tricky dilemma because I'm 4 over par for the round. I know I need to start scoring. At this point, I think after this hole, we were only going to have 3 more left to play. And normally I would lay this up all day long just because, A, it's an elevated basket, B, I'm really too far away to have a reasonable chance at making it, and C, it is windy as heck this round. In fact, it was really windy all day. And obviously wind impacts your throws quite a lot, but it's even more impactful on putts, which gets exaggerated when you're not putting at a normal target. You're putting at a target that's elevated, because that means you got to put your disc more in the air, which gives the wind more time to have impact. So I decide to try to give this like a slight chance. And I mean, the wind catches it and just pushes it way high and way left. And so now I'm left with this to try to save my par, which is not a putt you want. It's reasonable, but it's a tester and chained outright. And yeah, this one hurts to watch. We'll take a look here again and see exactly what happened. Definitely a little right of center. Sometimes those will stay, but that one fell right out. And so I went out taking a bogey on that hole. So now at 5 over par on the round. This is another water carry hole, but you can't quite tell. It was a headwind, so I threw something overstable, but it still wound up drifting way more left than I anticipated. But it was safe. It got across the water. That's all that matters. So I just pitched up to take my par. And I was able to get it, and so that keeps me at 5 over par. Now, this is hole 12. This is another par 3. It's 475 feet. Basket's way down here to the left-hand side. But as you can see, it's just trees everywhere, incredibly low ceiling, super windy. This is another hole that just feels ridiculous. Like, I don't know who's really two-in this hole unless they throw a perfect roller shot, because you really can't throw a power shot because, I mean, where are you going to throw it? Like, way outside left over this water? Over the top of the trees up here. I mean, there's really no way to access this pin from the tee box. So I think this is another hole that, because of the distance, I can understand why it's not a par 4, because it is only 460 feet. That's kind of that tweener distance. But there's a lot of room to actually back this tee pad up, really probably as far as you want. You could probably back this tee up like 100 to 150 feet, and you'd still be fine. And then it could be a true par 4, which is what I think the hole should be. So this is another one of those holes, kind of like I said earlier, where it's a super long par 3, and this one feels even more unattainable because of how congested the fairway is. So again, a 3 feels like a birdie, a 4 feels like a par. It's a tough hole to get. And there was a right to left wind on this hole, and so I threw something a little more understable, but it wound up still going really far to the right-hand side. And then I kind of just shorted this approach shot. So it left myself a really long putt for par. And again, another low miss. And so that puts me at 6 over par. And so now this is the final hole of the first round. About 315 feet. I throw a shot that looks really good. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. Let's take a look at this again. This disc is on a beautiful line. This little pole is probably only like 8 inches wide or something like that. I don't know. It's a little telephone pole, a little electric pole, whatever. I put the perfect flight on this disc right here. If this disc is just behind this pole or just in front of it, it's going to come probably hit around here somewhere and then skip right towards the basket. I'm probably parked for a birdie, or at the very least, I'm somewhere in circle 1 with a chance at birdie, and likely at least a guaranteed 3, where I can end my round at either 6 over par if I par it, or get myself down to 5 over par if I can get the birdie. Instead, nail the pole, puts me in the road. That's out of bounds. So this is me putting for par after going out of bounds. Again, I miss low, not even close, and so I'll take another bogey. And so at the end of that round, I was 7 over par, which was rated just under 900. It was like 885 or something like that. And yeah, really disappointing. Obviously, a big issue for me has been missing my putts low. That's been a constant issue that I just can't figure it out. Like, I practice putting a lot at home, And at home, when I'm feeling comfortable and there's no pressure, you know, I feel like I drain most of my putts in that 20-foot range. But at this tournament, I was missing low. I missed low at least 3 or 4 times. So I feel like that round I lost 3 to 4 strokes to putting. And then I had that one putt on hole 4 where I hit the top band from like 10 or 15 feet away. So, yeah, I mean, somewhere between 3 to 5 strokes of that really just came down to putting. And then that last hole came down to going out of bounds, which, I mean, I got a little unlucky there. But let's just say I lost 3 to 5 strokes to putting and then 1 stroke to an OB that was incredibly unfortunate. And then I had that missed Mando, which was another stroke penalty. That one was on me 100%, just throwing a bad shot. So I was on pace to shoot maybe 2 under that round, and instead I wound up shooting 7 over just due to the 2 OBs and the putting woes. But now we're into the second round of the tournament. We start on the same hole. I'm actually on the lead card. I am only like 3 strokes behind the leader, I think, at this point. So there's still a chance for me to win this thing, even though I had some mishaps in the first round, no doubt. At this point, the weather was a lot warmer. That's why you see me able to shed the hoodie and just had the jersey and the long sleeve shirt on. But it was still pretty windy, pretty gusty. And we're on the exact same starting hole. So here we go. And this one, I just threw it into the ground. I hit the gap I wanted. But, yeah, just threw it way too low. Again, first dry jitters for a round, I guess. Tried to get that one a chance. Hit the top band. Can't really be too mad at that. Take the par. Back at hole 15 again. Just trying to get it in the fairway. Throwing something understable to make sure I stay away from that water on the left-hand side. Get some good progress up the fairway. Actually made it further up the fairway this time around compared to the first round. Throw a decent approach shot and got pretty fortunate that it kicked that direction because it could have easily kicked the opposite side. And so now I'm par, so I'm even through the first couple of holes, this second round, excuse me. Again, another longer par 3 where I'm just trying to make sure I set up for the par. And, yeah, do pretty well there to keep it at even par. So this hole I made an adjustment on disc choice and decided to play something more understable so I could stay more in line with the basket instead of flaring away to the left to try to have an easier approach shot, which I accomplished. But then I just early release, slipped out of my hand, whatever, and then missed the putt, and so I take a bogey there. So that's +1. This is the one I laced the first round. This time the wind was a bit different, so I played it out more to the right-hand side of the fairway, and it did not work out in my favor. Now I'm stuck in these woods. Try the pitch out, fail. So this is me throwing 3. Wasn't really trying to throw it in, but almost did. And wound up taking a bogey on that hole. So now we're like 2 over on the round already. Catch the last shot I need to miss before I'm skipping to the basket. Try to give it a chance anyway with the jump putt. Can't be mad at that one. Why not parring that hole? So made a change on this one, as you can see. Instead of throwing a backhand, I'm making sure I'm looking at this gap the entire time. Throwing a flex forehand, which was a much better thing. And I think if I would have practiced this course another 2 or 3 times before the tournament, I would have probably thrown a forehand the first round too. But make a good adjustment and hit a nice birdie there. Yeah, and I'm talking to this one guy who had just hit a huge putt for birdie from way further away than I was. And I'm like, I'm not letting you big putt me. And so we had a fun card both rounds. I was playing with a lot of the same players both rounds, and everybody was really, really cool. So we were having fun. You know what I wasn't having fun with? That forehand. And I'm going to blame, though? This is what I'm going to blame. This is petty. This is petty. But you know what I blame? I'll show you in a second. There's someone to blame for this bad forehand. Because it can't be me, right? It's this freaking raccoon over here, bro. It's this raccoon over here. He was glaring at me. I didn't like the way he was staring at me. It threw me off my game. Threw a bad forehand. Here's your nature appreciation moment. Just your man enjoying himself a Sonic milkshake. Trash Panda living up to the name. Long par putt. Or that was a long birdie putt. So, actually, no, I did bogey that hole. I missed the approach shot because we were busy filming the raccoon. So I wound up bogeying that hole. So now I'm 3 over par. This time I put more hyzer angle on the disc to make sure it faded, and it did. And yeah, I am rewarded with a tap-in birdie. So it kind of makes up for the mistake from the previous hole of bogeying it. At this point, I don't know what I'm at because I like birdied, bogeyed, birdied. So I'm kind of just all over the place. Throw a much better forehand on hole 2 this time. Still not really quite able to get up there for a birdie putt, but settle for the par. This is hole 3. And same thing. I just thought this disc was going to fade faster than it did, and it's kept flying straight. So it never made it across the ditch. Luckily, it hits the tree and stops, so I can still throw a pretty easy chip shot to save my par. Then I was trying to do the same thing I did the previous round this hole, but I threw it a good bit higher in the air, and so I got caught up on the trees. So now I got to work for this one a little bit. And skip a nice approach shot up there and able to tap in. Now, I do want to note that the reason why the volume's kind of lowered right now for like the actual on-course audio is A, it was windy, and so the wind blowing makes noise that you probably wouldn't like to hear. And secondly, one of the guys on my car was playing music, which I was okay with. The whole car was like, yeah, whatever, dude, no big deal. But A, he wound up blaring it kind of loud on a few holes, and it was actually kind of distracting. But we wound up telling him, and he did turn down the volume, so it's no big deal, like, whatever. But two, I'm also not trying to get flagged on YouTube for, like, copyright or something like that. So I'm kind of killing the course audio a little bit here between the wind and the music. Yeah, I don't know what he was listening to, bro. It's like some robot screamo stuff. It was kind of wild. Anyway, throw a not so great tee shot. Throw a great second shot, but still don't really have much. And so I take a 4 on this hole. And so now I'm kind of shooting the same as I did the previous round. We did not show this hole the first round. I parred it. This round, I throw a really good forehand. And basically have a drop-in birdie. And I'm going to pause here because at this point, I'm actually only 1 stroke off the leader or something like that. Like the fact that I grabbed a few birdies and, you know, limited the damage. I did take like 1 bogey on hole 6, but I think everyone was bogeying that hole. It's because of how hard it was. Again, it's one of those holes that I feel like needs to be tweaked or something. Just doesn't seem like a really fair par 3. Anyway, I was actually doing okay at this point. You know, I was kind of hovering around like even par, 1 over par for the round at this point in time. And so I was actually only 1 stroke away from the leader. I was like in a 4-way tie for second or something like that. So things were going okay. You know, and I still have, I think, this is hole 8, something like that. So I have like, you know, 6 or 7 holes left to play. And still a chance to win here. On this hole, I was reading headwind coming through the tunnel, and so I wanted to throw something a little bit overstable to make sure I didn't, like, roll over right too much. But in hindsight, I probably should have just played something more neutral because missing by rolling over right is totally okay. Missing left, there's an OB road over here. So I guess this is kind of some foreshadowing. But the headwind wound up not flipping up the disc as much as I thought it would. And so my disc hyzered out more than I thought it would. And so it actually did go out of bounds. And so that was me throwing 3. I screwed up the approach shot. And then I screwed that up. And so I wound up taking a 5 on that hole. So I went from being 1 stroke behind the lead in the mix to now I just took a double bogey. And now I'm like 4 strokes behind the leader with just a handful of holes left to play. And so now we're on hole 9. Throwing the same forehand. this time I just didn't trust it. And I'm going to tell you what, those woods are thick, but I got all the way in those woods, okay? I was like 80 feet in the woods, and there's no footage of this because you wouldn't be able to see anything from where I was at. But I was basically 80 feet deep in the woods. First shot I tried to throw out of the woods basically gets nowhere. Second shot gets me to where I'm at right now. So that's the tee shot, and then 2 shots to get out of the woods to where I'm at now. So this is me throwing 4. So this is for bogey. Just wanted to explain that really quick. And I missed low once again. And so I wound up taking back-to-back double bogeys after shooting like 1 over par, even par-ish through kind of the first half of the round. I've now taken back-to-back double bogeys to put me like right at 6 over par. And now I'm like 5 strokes behind the leader. So at this point, I'm just trying to play for top 5 because there was like 12 or 13 players in the field. And if I could place top 5, that'd at least win me something, like win me a small prize or something like that. You know, they're still setting a new goal now that I know that the other goals are not likely to be attainable, but I'm still trying to stay motivated. Throw that same stall hyzer shot just to make sure I get up there. This time, we didn't film the approach shot, but I put myself right out there to get a par. I laid up this time, played it smart. This hole, I tried to get a little aggressive on just because the wind was playing nice. So I threw something less overstable than I had thrown the previous round. And got way up there. I actually gave myself like a legitimate birdie putt from like the edge of circle 1, maybe just inside circle 2. And I was just high. Just a touch high. Which is wild because I kept missing low most of the tournament. So to miss high was kind of weird. And this is basically the same old story as the first round, where it was a right to left win. So I tried to play something that would get straight, but wound up not. Got pulled way right. Had kind of a blind approach shot towards the basket. Actually threw a decent shot, but had a lot more ground play than I was really hoping for. And I'm back to missing low now after missing high on the previous hole. So it's a rough one. I wind up bogeying that hole. So now I'm at 7 over par again, just like I was the first round. But redemption. I didn't hit the pole. And I got up there. This is the spot I would have been in the first round had I missed the pole. So now, my chance at redemption. A chance to birdie the hole. It hurts. It hurts to watch. It's painful. That is, what, like the 8th or 9th putt I've missed low? Oh, boy. Again, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. So anyway, we'll throw a couple of highlights up there while we talk through this. Again, one of my big issues this tournament, and one of my big issues really throughout the last couple of tournaments, putting has been the issue. And I feel like I'm putting in a lot of practice putting in my backyard at home, but it's just not translating to the course in a tournament. And obviously everyone will tell you that putting in a tournament is much different than putting in your backyard. You have no pressure when you're putting in your backyard. And there are certain things you can do to try to simulate pressure, like, you know, play like a game or something like that where there's like a reward or a penalty or something to try to simulate tournament pressure, but it's still not really the same. And the best that you can really do is just really drill putting, build that muscle memory, build a pre-putt routine that you're always going to follow no matter what the situation is, to try to like keep you in the same mindset, to kind of just keep that muscle memory flowing even if you feel a little jittery or nervous. And I guess either I just have not put in enough putting training to get that muscle memory, even though I feel like I do practice putting a lot. Maybe I need to practice putting even more. And so that's something I'm definitely going to try to do going forward, is just try to commit to throwing a certain amount of putts a day. I feel like I was putting every day, but I wasn't really doing like a putt count, so to speak. I was just trying to, you know, go out there and putt every day for a little bit, you know, 30 minutes or something like that. So I'm going to try to start like doing 100 putts a day, maybe even build it to 200 putts a day. And just try to stick to that, you know, try to get in a ton of reps every day and just try to really develop that muscle memory and really develop that comfort in my putting stance and just how I putt. I also kind of want to simplify my putt a little bit because, as you'll probably notice through some of these putts, I do dip quite low with my lower body, and that's a lot of extra movement that adds just another variable to my putt. So I want to try to get to the point where when I putt, yes, I want to use my lower body in my putt, but I don't want to be, you know, dropping way down like you just see there when I putt. That just adds so much extra movement. So I need to find a way to minimize how dramatic my lower body movement is in my putt, and that'll help me have, again, less variables to worry about when I'm putting. So, yeah, going to try to change up the putt a little bit to move a little bit less with the lower body, and then I just need to put in more putts, basically, to try to build that muscle memory. That way I can just really rely on that muscle memory when I'm feeling pressure. You know, I can have that routine and that's just feel for it when all else fails to be able to fall back on, I guess you could say. So that's one thing I definitely need to work on. Another thing I really need to work on is my up shots, because as you can see, you know, when you look back through this tournament footage, there were a lot of up shots that I left short. Particularly some of my forehand up shots were like just off. So on top of practicing the putting and really tweaking that, the other big thing I want to do is work on forehand up shots. This was actually a pretty good forehand up shot. And I had a few others that were pretty good, but there were also a few that were really rough. So I would say I was only like maybe 50% on my success with my forehand up shots. So something I definitely am going to try to do some drills on and practice as well on top of the putting to try to get that dialed. And then on top of that, the only other things is really just, again, trying to focus on the mental game. You know, this event, there were definitely some times where I blew up a little bit and I got really frustrated and I, you know, said some things. And, you know, I really need to continue to strive to stay positive. I know it's easier said than done. I know that you're always going to get a little bit of upset and frustrated, but I need to be able to snap out of it and kind of get back on track and just not be so dramatic in how upset I get. You know, understand this is just a game. This is something I'm doing because I enjoy it and it's fun. And I need to make sure I'm having fun on the course, because if I'm having fun and staying loose and keeping my head right, I'm going to play better. And I've already seen that that's the case, because that's what helped me get my win last year, was by being in that positive mindset even when things were going rough. So I need to kind of just get back to that place. And that's something else I'm going to be striving to do, is just kind of keep the mental game right. I think one of the things that I'm going to be doing to do that is just have my friends kind of hold me accountable and practicing casual rounds. You know, to, you know, call me out if I show any outward signs of being upset or frustrated. Because I think calling it out and recognizing it and noting it will help me identify how often I do it and, you know, try to help me course correct and try to bring that number down, so to speak, if that makes any sense. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. But anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. Definitely some positives this tournament is that I'm throwing backhands well off the tee. I'm still not getting the distance I want to get all the time, but I'm definitely usually pretty accurate and I'm getting decent distance. So just if I continue to get in the reps and refine my backhand form, I'm sure eventually I will get to a point where I'm throwing better and further backhands. And then other than that, it's just about all the other things I've already mentioned as far as things to work on and focus on. But anyway, that's going to do it for this tournament video. Again, there's definitely a lot of things that I know I need to work on between now and the next tournament I play, which is in about a month. And at the same time, though, I need to, you know, try not to be too hard on myself and recognize that there were some positives this tournament. You know, I was hitting some putts. It just, the consistency wasn't quite there. I was throwing pretty clean off the tee for the most part, particularly my backhand tee shots were really good. And I had some good backhand up shots that gave me some, you know, easy pars. So definitely some positives there. But again, just need to work on all the things I've already said. And without further ado, I will cut this one. Hope you folks enjoyed it. Hope that you'll follow and subscribe for future content. And I'll see you next time around.